Would like to thank you all for joining this webinar. We will be starting shortly. The next 3 minutes, we should be able to start. Thank you for joining, and thank you also for taking your time to join this webinar. Thank you all for joining, and I think for now we can be able to start. I'd like to request all our panelists to be able to switch on the video camera so that we can be able to see you. Thank you so much. Engineer Ziria, Madam Ziria, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Oh,
I hope you can hear me loud and clear.
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear, Madam. Thank you so much. We would like to start. So again, I would like to thank you so much for joining. This is a special webinar that is organized by the Energy Regulation Center of Excellence, which is an organ of the Energy Regulators Association of East Africa. Our objective as an institution and as the association is to promote the establishment of the robust East African Community Energy Union. And to achieve this, we initiate sustainable collaborations with like-minded institutions globally. Today, we bring together policymakers from across the continent, the African Development Bank, the African Green Hydrogen Alliance, the East African Power Pool Independent Regulatory Board, the Eastern African Community Economic Bloc, as well as the Regional Association of Energy Regulators of the Eastern and Southern Africa, which is hosted by COMESA. The focus of this webinar today will be to discuss the progress of green hydrogen regulatory frameworks and also the potential of hydrogen to energy market in the Eastern Africa region, and also as a way of accelerating energy access in Africa. Before we start, we shall have an opening remarks from Engineer Ziria Chibalo Wako. But very briefly, just to introduce her, she is the Chief Executive Officer of the Electricity Regulatory Authority of Uganda. She is also the chairperson of the Energy Regulators Association of East Africa, and she is also the chairperson of the East African Power Pool Independent Regulatory Board. Now, this will focus on the various aspects of green hydrogen, and this panelists that we have will be looking at different elements as we'll be moving closer to the panel discussion. Now, after her keynote speech, then we'll move into the various discussions and presentations by the stakeholders. Now, I'd like to inform you that please feel free to type your questions on the Zoom chat platform. And also just to let you know that this session will be live on YouTube and LinkedIn as well. And now welcome Madam Engineer Ziria for her opening remarks.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Mabea. Good afternoon, good morning, and evening from wherever you are joining from. Allow me to thank you for giving us an opportunity as a REA through the Energy Regulatory Center of Excellence to start the key objective, one of the key objectives of establishing the Energy Regulatory Center of Excellence. And starting it in this way because regulation is about data, is about knowledge, is about capacity, is about competencies, and leveraging webinars where we are able to reach many of us, having learned from the COVID period, where the offices became boundless, where we are able to reach to be able to network, to exchange information, to share experiences. You'll agree with me that it is the best way that we can better our regulatory environment and regulatory climate. So I congratulate the Executive Secretary of the REA and the Energy Regulatory Center of Excellence upon this inaugural webinar focusing on enhancing capacity building on various aspects of energy regulation within our national regulatory institutions, This particular one focusing on hydrogen. The East African Regional Energy Regulator Summit is a unique multi-stakeholder platform designed by the energy. Among other aims, it aims at providing space, a platform for networking and exchanging information, stroke experiences in the energy sector, discussing topical issues affecting the industry, such as the creation of internal electricity markets for the Africa and beyond, power pooling, issues of sharing the generation complementarities to be able to decarbonize the continent, issues of the energy transition and regional regulation. The continent is at various levels of development, and therefore sharing information enables us to avoid the duplication and reinventing the wheel. It also aims at bringing together the regulators, the industrial players, development partners, power utilities, energy firms, investors, financials, the academia, the policy, worldwide regulators beyond the to provide a platform for engaging in strategic and meaningful conversations, emerging trends. It also helps us to enlightening the region and the continent on the progress of green hydrogen, specifically for this one, which is focusing on green hydrogen and its regulatory framework. The potential for hydrogen to the energy markets in East Africa and the bank's role in achieving and promoting green hydrogen and the Energy Regulatory Center of Excellence's role in capacity building on the continent, the two meet. Because on one hand, the bank is supporting the decarbonization agenda and green hydrogen is just one of them. But on the other hand, the objective of the Energy Regulatory Center of Excellence is to bridge the gap because regulation is fairly new on the African continent and we are at different levels of development. And therefore to bridge that gap by bringing us together to share what we know and the areas that challenge us on a daily basis. This provides a very, very good platform. Now, just to give a highlight on how did we birth the Energy Regulatory Center of Excellence and how does it operate. The Energy Regulatory Center of Excellence has been operational since 2022 and was established following the recommendations from the African Development Bank study on the energy sector capacity building diagnosis and needs assessment study of 2014, hence creating regional centers of excellence. The IRB capacity building recommendations of 2021, creating the Center of Excellence for Regulatory Training, but also the ERCE study on the framework for regulatory oversight and energy markets 2020, again establishing regional centers of excellence. So as you can see, there have been various studies that had been undertaken and identified this as a gap. Therefore, ERCE, to bridge this gap, then established the Energy Regulatory Center of Excellence, which started its operations in 2022. Some of the journey that we've had so far, we have so far trained over 350 energy experts and other stakeholders from 27 countries on the continent, and focusing on tailor-made, affordable, and hands-on programs, such as the energy regulation, electricity market, and the petroleum subsector as well. And we have lined up 32 courses running up to 2026, available at a very affordable cost. As you may recall, to learn about regulation or to build capacity in regulation, we always had to go to IP3, we had to go to PAC, we had to go to Spain, and just a ticket to take you there and back is more than enough what the Energy Regulatory Center of Excellence requires you to be able to come together and listen to the experts as well as share as experts, because each of us has a niche, has an area of expertise that we thrive in. So this Regional Energy Regulatory Center of Excellence comes in handy, very handy, in bridging the gap, knowing that regulation is a fairly new phenomenon on the African continent. I think Uganda has the oldest regulator, if I'm not wrong. We've made it about 23 years of existence regulating the electricity supply industry. The other area is just to emphasize what is our vision. Our vision is to progress towards an ERCE, Energy Union, through sustainable capacity building. And again, is to link up with the academia and build the research powerhouse that will enhance the ERCE Energy Union. The other area is to establish collaborative partnership with the like-minded institutions that will result into innovative and strategies that would enhance the energy regional trade. Of course, the exchange of ideas and experiences to fulfill the East African potential, transform the energy market into an efficient and have it efficient and effectively regulated. I want to say that over a period, we have already seen these objectives being realized. We have entered into MOU, and indeed even on this very webinar, there are collaborative efforts that we have gone through to be able to deliver the webinar today. Allow me to thank all the experts that have accepted to come and share their time and the knowledge and expertise with us, but also to thank the FDB for continuing to have a focus on the regulatory aspects, specifically in capacity building. We recognize this, and we believe that slowly we will arrive. Incidentally, before we perfect the national regulation, the regional regulation is calling upon us, because the electrons want to fly across borders. And therefore, we cannot constrain them within the region, because some countries have surplus and others have deficits. Others have clean energy, others have quasi-dirty, others have dirty energy. So the more we integrate, the more we pull our electrons into a power pool, the easier for us even to speak to the energy transition and decarbonization, in addition to accelerating access to clean energy for all at an affordable and reliable, to achieve affordability and reliability. So I would like once again to say thank you to all of you, and wish ourselves an engaging and fruitful conversation in this yet a very new area on the African continent, and yet it is taking root, and we cannot afford it to remain behind. I thank you and wish you an excellent engagement during this webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Engineer Ziria, who is also the CEO And at this point, I would like to then request the panelists to be able to turn on their cameras. I will ask them to introduce themselves. Then from there, we will start with the first one. So let's start with Joyce. You introduce yourself. Then we move on to the rest, the other participants, please.
Thank you, Dr. Mabea. Good afternoon. My name is Joyce Kabwe, and I coordinate the Africa Green Hydrogen Alliance under the Green Hydrogen Organization, which offers the secretariat role to the Alliance. And the Alliance is a government-led platform that is working to accelerate the production of green hydrogen in Africa, and we'll be talking more about it during this webinar. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Let's move to Dr. Mohamedin.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. May, and let me also greet all the participants, and particularly the chair, and also Engineer Zera. My name is Muhammad Safarnas. I am the Chief Executive Officer of the Regional Association of Energy Regulators for Eastern and Southern Africa, which is a specialized agency of COMISA. So I'm very happy also to take part in this very important discussion on green hydrogen. So over to you, moderator.
Thank you so much. Khalis.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Mabea. I hope you can hear me. Actually, the energy challenges in Africa are huge. We are currently facing now a power cut here in Abidjan. So I hope you can hear me very well. My name is Karik Sekambanda. I'm Division Manager for Energy Policy, Regulation and Statistics to the African Development Bank. I'm based in Abidjan. Happy to be with you today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you, dear panelists. These are the three experts that we have who will be taking us through this webinar on green hydrogen. And straight away, I would like to start with Joyce Kabwe to take us through some of the work that the organization has been carrying out. And after that, then we'll be able to have the questions at the end of the her presentation. Joyce, please proceed.
Thank you, Dr. Mabea. I hope you can all see my slides. Yes. There are many, but I will ensure I stick to my 15 minutes. So the Africa Green Hydrogen Alliance, I don't know why. I'll be speaking about the Africa Green Hydrogen Alliance, the opportunity, the challenges, and really what is important for regulators to be thinking at, where we'll be talking about the green hydrogen standard and how that would really support the financing and uptake of green hydrogen in Africa. So the Alliance currently has 10 members, and we have Angola, Djibouti, Egypt, Ethiopia, Kenya, Mauritania, Morocco, Namibia, Nigeria, and South Africa. And the countries work together to foster collaboration around policy, financing, there's regulation, and also certification. And we pull together partners to support the work of the Alliance, which was established in May 2022, including we've received support from the African Development Bank previously. The Alliance is currently chaired by Honorable Remakopa, who's the Minister of Electricity in South Africa. And so the highest leadership body here is the ministers and their various members of the Alliance. And the work of the Alliance is mainly to then demonstrate leadership around then ensuring that green hydrogen is accepted and the projects are coming online in the African region. And we also do work around certification and standards to ensure that then we're accessing both export and regional markets where necessary to ensure then, because this is really still about economic development. There's also then supporting countries in establishing legal frameworks. Markets is also big because we'll be talking about where Africa's green hydrogen could be used. We're looking at domestic opportunities, export as well as regional. And then also looking at technology, which is primarily also being driven by where the financing is, where the market is, and also the conversation that we always have in the energy space on supply and demand, and quite a lot of work on mobilizing partnerships to support green hydrogen projects in Africa. This is just partners that we are working with. The Green Hydrogen Organization, where I currently work, supports the Alliance Secretariat. We've worked with the World Bank's Hydrogen for Development Working Group. AUDONEPA, the African Climate Foundation, has supported our work on establishing a financial model to then ensure that governments are making financial informed decisions when it comes to fiscal incentives given to the private sector players. So looking at the hydrogen opportunity and really why do we need green hydrogen? So first, there's a part where we are talking about anything that is connected to the grid and can be connected to the grid, is accessible to the grid, that should continue being on the grid. And then there's what can be powered with batteries. So here we have cars and the small vans, those continue using batteries. And then the green hydrogen opportunity is really around the areas that will be hard to decarbonize. So the fertilizers, considering Africa is still quite under fertilized, the land that we are, and we need to feed the growing population. There's also the long haul trucks and steel making and also shipping as well as aviation when it comes to sustainable aviation fuels. So when it comes to the production of green hydrogen, we're looking at first replacing the 90 million tons of hydrogen that are currently produced from fossil fuels, and then really growing these 7 times fold by 2050 to support the decarbonization of these high emitting sectors. And heavily this then will also support the production of renewable energy. So it's also working together, because in Africa, we're also talking about access to energy, and not just access to light bulbs, but really productive use of the renewable energy resources that we have on the continent, which have been identified to be quite immense. And so we have also done a study on what the Africa's green hydrogen potential looks like. And this study is available on the Green Hydrogen website, as well as the high-level champions. And it just demonstrates the numbers. So the 30 to 60 metric tons of hydrogen and 6 million by 2030. And a third of these mostly will go to domestic market opportunities. And then 2/3 will be for export. And the export opportunity here is we're looking at Europe, Japan, South Korea as the main markets for the hydrogen that will be produced in Africa. Looking at also the renewable energy that will be required, that has been estimated to be around from 510 gigawatts of renewable. So even when we are talking about tripling our renewables by 2030 and Africa doing 5 times this, so green hydrogen will need quite a large amount of this. And this is requiring an investment that's getting close to 1 trillion. So that's about $900 billion between now and 2050. And this is, we're estimating this to be about 6 billion every year. So financing is also still a big gap. The 70% of this investment is going to go to building the renewable energy projects and also expanding the electrolysis potential that Africa holds. So this is just how those numbers were brought about. We worked with a knowledge partner, McKinsey, in identifying this potential. So when we're looking at the socioeconomic benefits that green hydrogen could bring to Africa, we're looking at realizing this potential will add about 66 billion to 126 billion to the GDPs of the members of the Africa Green Hydrogen Alliance by 2050, which is really between 6 and 12% of the current GDPs. And we're looking at about 2 million to 4 million jobs, either direct or indirect during construction or the operation part of the green hydrogen projects. So it's quite a big opportunity that we cannot ignore. So when we're looking at progress currently and where we are at in Africa in terms of projects, quite a number, the 10 members of the Africa Green Hydrogen Alliance at least either have signed MOUs with various private sector companies or have done a green hydrogen strategy and are in the process of then developing the project's various development phases. So this map is also available in better clarity on our website in terms of some of these flagship projects in the various countries. But I wanted to just narrow down on one project in Kenya that is currently already in operation. This is the Talus Renewables project, and it's located in Naivasha, Kenya, that has a 15-year offtake agreement with the Kenya Nut Company. And they aim to lower the cost of fertilizers by 30%. And this is a small-scale modular that is installed in less than 6 months, and 6 months is accounting for the time that it is going to take whether to obtain the right licenses and build the solar plant. And this has been made possible with an investment of $4 million. And the developers of this project were able to finance this project off their balance sheet. And that's because they're American-based. And so they have significantly benefited from the Inflation Reduction Act tax credits, the $3 package that the US is giving to green hydrogen producers. So that has enabled them to be able to finance these projects in Kenya. And they're working on another in Zambia. And they're looking for many other opportunities in Africa where they can deploy this technology fast. So quite a number of projects, and I'll make these slides available for us after this call. Egypt is certainly leading with quite a number of projects announced. But according to Bloomberg, they've been tracking about 149 offtake agreements. And what we're seeing is out of these projects that have been announced so far, about only 10% have a binding offtaker. About, I think, 23 are somewhere pre-contractual, negotiating, and majority, which is about 80%, are just at an MOU stage. So which means this project could either go forward or they could collapse, depending on how the policy environment looks like. Regulations, are they working for or against green hydrogen production? And so we're waiting to see what happens this year, because we've just seen quite a bit of a decline in the momentum when it comes to green hydrogen, which we can say was not the case last year. There was quite a bit of excitement and seeing, let's push things forward. So Namibia also has one very exciting, quite a number, but I wanted to also just focus on the Hyphen project. Just looking at the dynamics in the project, which is a $10 billion investment, and all of us knowing the economy of Namibia and how this project, even raising that financing, what the country needs to do, the kind of partnerships they need to establish, the kind of policy, the enabling environment they need to create to ensure that such a big project that's just almost matching the country's GDP becomes viable and takes off the ground. And South Africa, being one of the largest gray hydrogen producers using fossil fuels, they're also really keen to decarbonize the current production before they can go green. So looking at the policy and regulation space, well, there's one thing that's happening in the global conversation. We've heard about the 3 pillars which are being pushed for in terms of regulating green hydrogen projects. And so this is the conversation on one is additionality, that the project, the renewable energy that you're using to power your electrolyzer, it has to be a new project. So the EU, the US, and Canada are looking at various, they're varying depending on when the US is looking at the renewable energy has to be within 36 months. And then also the EU. And looking that the EU will form a major market for hydrogen that's produced in Africa, all its derivatives, whether it's the fertilizers or the green ammonia, then it's really important for us to be paying attention to what's happening in the global space and to also ensure that we're really participating in this policy formulation, particularly looking at the CBAM, the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, because hydrogen is one of the 6 sectors that are within the scope of CBAM. So which means our export market, we could be locked out of the export market if we are not participating in the conversation of the regulations being formed. So the other one is geographic matching, which is that the plant has, your renewable energy source has to be where your hydrogen production is. So again, another conversation for us to really look at when you're looking at Africa and our power pools and how we want to interconnect them. And what does this mean if we produce green hydrogen from the power that's coming from the grid? And the other one is time matching, that you have to be producing power that is within that hour, and you have to be able to show your renewable energy certificate need to be showing that, which again, so far, most of the verifiers who can at least verify that this is what is happening are not able to do an hour-to-hour matching, but they're doing more of the hourly. So it means that we don't even have sufficient capacity at a global level to be able to do the time matching aspect of it. And we are also still differing on emissions thresholds. So at the Green Hydrogen Organization, we are going with a 1 kg of green hydrogen to 1 kg of carbon dioxide. And other various jurisdictions are going with varying numbers, which have been listed there from 3.4 to 4 kgs. And so these numbers are still not agreed on, and some are agreed. And so the question here is where does Africa fall? Where does East Africa fall? And how do we define our own standards? Are we going to create new green hydrogen standards for ourselves? Or are we going to adapt the existing global ones to fit our cases? So this is a really important conversation, and at the Africa Green Hydrogen Alliance has a working group that's working on this to really start defining where are we going to land. So China, India, Japan, and Korea also currently are not really keen on these 3 pillars. So could that be the market that we're looking at? But it's really an area that needs quite a bit of interrogation by the regulators and the standards bodies in the various countries. So one place that we need to act on, that like I've mentioned, is that harmonization of standards to ensure that then we're not being locked out of the export market opportunities of whether it's mostly going to be green ammonia or it's other derivatives or end products, so that we are best prepared and responsive to how the markets are changing. So, and one thing that's also really big when it comes to the green hydrogen standard to talk about is the sustainability aspect, because sustainability, looking at our green hydrogen production has to be contributing to the SDGs. So whether it's energy access or climate action or partnerships or gender or health, because this is a clean solution, at least that will also ensure that then we're unlocking the $900 billion that's required to ensure that we realize Africa's green hydrogen potential. And then there's also looking at the social governance and environmental aspects on top of looking or at emissions. And currently the ISO standards is focusing mainly on just the emissions threshold. So just maybe like perhaps a case study or what some of the African countries are doing when it comes to regulations. I will not go through each, but we know that Egypt early in the year launched their tax incentives, and now that's a law where they're giving tax credits of 33 to 55%. They are also getting quite a number of VAT exemptions on equipment. So again, what we've done, we have a financial model that we want to also work with Egypt to see if how are we tracking these incentives and are governments realizing benefits? Because at the end of the day, this really has to also ensure that green hydrogen sector, governments, communities are realizing early revenues and not just the private sector. So it's, are we correcting the mistakes of the past using informed law? And Kenya also developed their green hydrogen guidelines to guide the private sector players, and also appreciating that the private sector tends to move faster than governments. So at least these guidelines create a framework to show that governments and private sector, we are aligned on the direction that we are taking. And the Mauritania is also in the process of finalizing their green hydrogen code, which again, looking at how Mauritania has very large scale green hydrogen projects, then this will also increase that investor confidence, particularly when you're looking at the demand side. So we're seeing incentives coming in more on the supply side, but not as much on the demand side. So how do we ensure that we're also balancing? Because offtake is one of the major hindrances to unlocking the financing that's needed for green hydrogen. So it's varying from no one wants to sign a 20-year agreement now, not knowing how the market will change. And we're looking at, even when you look at now the 3 pillars and how they'll affect the choice of the electrolyzer you use. Because if you need to do the hourly matching, then you don't need to have the electrolyzer that's running 24/7, but you can use, it's slightly still more expensive. But so they're quite the technological decisions that you'll need to make based on the various regulations that are coming up. So this is what African countries are doing currently, and we're inviting more countries to join the alliance. So I'll be looking for Uganda soon to see how we can work together or in the alliance. So market, like I've mentioned, is one of the biggest challenges. So there's work that needs to be done there, and the policy side of things will really help unlock markets, because you look like Ethiopia, they have a really good opportunity to produce both green fertilizers as well as sustainable aviation fuels, given that they are a regional travel hub. So Kenya has already picked green fertilizers, but we also have developers that are exploring hydrogen for storage, for grid stabilization, which again is a big need in the country. So just as I wind up, is quite what can we do together, and partnerships are emerging key. So really glad to be then part of this conversation, and I would hope to be having various conversations on how we can work together with the Energy Regulation Center of Excellence, particularly when we're looking at the standards and how the global markets are unfolding, and how Africa, we can prepare, we can harmonize our standards as we get together. There's the issue of permitting. So it's still one of the thing that's taking a bit too long for these projects to be realized, which again, we've seen is what affects the cost of projects. So we have quite a number of recommendations on that. And then the government commitment has continued to show that Africa is ready for business. Africa is ready to produce green hydrogen because we have the land, we have the solar, we have the wind, we have the technical capacity, because all the engineers in the oil and gas sector, these are the same people who just reskill and they will work in the green hydrogen sector. So we're quite prepared. There's definitely gaps that we need to build, and various universities in the region have already started training. In Kenya, we have Strathmore. In Egypt, we have quite a number of universities, South Africa as well. Namibia is already giving scholarships for green hydrogen engineers. So there's quite a lot of work that's already happening, but partnerships are really what are going to help us move forward. This is just a summary of how we can do faster when it comes to permitting projects to ensure that this is happening. And when we're talking about partnerships, we're really talking that we need to talk to funders. So we have seen that private capital, the risk appetite getting better, I think, from our analysis. That's because we have quite a bit of private capital that's saying we're ready, we want to invest, and we want to do big. And then DFIs there with helping de-risking, coming in early with technical assistance and doing feasibility studies. And the offtake side is still a big gap. So the commitment on the offtake is still lagging behind. And the policy and regulation side of things will send a strong signal to the investors and off-takers that governments are ready to do this, which then will unlock that side. Civil society are a crucial partner in a green hydrogen space, because we want to ensure that communities are not left behind when it comes to land access, water again, because you realize most of the African countries will be water stressed, but green hydrogen is not using a lot of water. So when we are coming also with technologies such as desalination, how are communities benefiting early on? So we don't want to develop projects and say, okay, now it's time to engage communities, but really carrying them along from the start of the design of these projects. And governments are key power pools working together to ensure that then it's about increasing renewable energy access. So we've seen the concept of hydrogen hubs coming up as a viable model, because then again, appreciating that transmission is a challenge in Africa, and I think in most other places. But also when you're collocating the projects, then you're lowering your transmission costs or any other infrastructure costs. So that's also a place that the government can support. And the special economic zones, which I know, I'm sure Kenya has started doing this, so that then also developers can locate themselves in these spaces, enjoy the tax incentives, and also lower their project costs. Is there. So partnerships, and I look forward to working with those participants in this webinar so that we can take this forward. And if you'd like to have any conversations on any of these aspects, we would be very happy to speak. Thank you, Dr. Mabea.
Thank you so much, Joyce, for that highlight. I think it has been really quite elaborating on what is happening in the continent. And one of the key things I've pointed out, or maybe I've picked from your presentation, is the need to have the partnerships and collaborations among the partners, so that we can be able to enhance this. And also the fact that then regulators need to come in and see how they can accelerate the permitting issues, as well as standardization, harmonization of policies, across the various jurisdictions. Although there was a worry that, well, there is a decline in the momentum of having these projects, probably later on you'll be able to explain to us why should this be the case. But I'm really so grateful for the presentation, and I think it has been an eye-opener. At this point, I would like to then invite Kalis to be able to present to us the bank's perspective on green hydrogen and what they're looking at as a bank. Then from there, we can be able to proceed with the next presentation. Thank you. Kalis, please welcome.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mabea. So I will try to see, no, maybe it's better you share my presentation because, yeah, because of the power challenges. Yes. Very good. You can go to the next slide. So, yeah, next slide. Yeah, thank you very much. This slide is just providing overview of for the African Development Bank. You know, when it was established, you know, the total approvals. Well, we do have country offices in all the dark area you see here on the map. This is where we have our country offices. You will see where we have the regional offices, and our headquarters is, of course, in Abidjan, Ivory Coast. Next slide, please. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, on the left side, you have the commitments so far made overall worldwide by the governments. 120 countries announced net zero emission goals. 30 countries released green hydrogen roadmaps. 228 large-scale hydrogen projects announced as of 2021. So I don't have the most recent data. So, but in terms of resources, so we have a very growing momentum around the use of hydrogen technology, but all the types of hydrogen are not compatible with net zero goals. I have provided here different sources of hydrogen production. We have fossil fuels where you have from gas, gray hydrogen, blue hydrogen, also from gas, but with a difference that by blue hydrogen you can sequestrate or storage CO2. But you have also brown hydrogen from coal. You can also produce hydrogen from biomass, what we have moss hydrogen, and the hydrogen from renewable energy, the green hydrogen, which is the focus of our today's presentation. Next slide, please. Thank you. Yes, the new wave of green hydrogen projects is driven by a combination of different factors, particularly cost reduction, but also technology innovation. On the left side, I have provided, you know, different trending factors: low renewable energy cost, the price of electricity procured from solar PV, wind plants, power plants has decreased substantially over the last 10 years. Hydrogen technologies are ready to scale up. Most of components in the hydrogen value chain have been deployed on small scale and are ready for commercialization with about 60% decrease in the cost of electrolysis since 2010. The pipeline of projects is also growing exponentially. Just as an example, from 2021, in 2020, global electrolyzer capacity stood at 0.3 gigawatt. But as of October 2021, the announced electrolyzer project pipeline have reached over 260 gigawatt globally, bringing an additional potential 475 gigawatt of wind and solar capacity. On the right side, I provided a chart showing the trend on the average cost of production of green hydrogen projected to decrease from $5 per kilo of hydrogen today to almost $1 per kilo of hydrogen produced by 2050. Next, please. Yeah, concerning East Africa and Africa region, just to provide some potential on renewable energy potentials and generation potentials. Green hydrogen production is dependent on available resources such as renewable energy, but also water. Then Africa's abundant renewable energy sources could be leveraged to produce green hydrogen to address issues on intermittency posed by variable renewable energy. So, but also land issue, access to land. It's worth mentioning here that sub-Saharan Africa alone has about 105 million hectares of unexploited available land. On the table below, you can see the potential for solar PV and wind, with Eastern Africa having 219,481 terawatt-hour per year potential, and wind with 165,875 terawatt-hour potentials. Next, please. So I will skip this one since Joyce has already presented on it, just to highlight where East Africa is. But next slide, Joyce has already presented it. Yeah, on this slide, I will touch base on the publication of Master Report from 2022, where it was stated that more than 20 projects across Africa for green hydrogen, from which 13 amounting to approximately 48 gigawatt of electrolyzer capacity by October, this was as October 2022. And with more announcement of capacities to be added. Now, the remainder of this slide is about Africa Green Hydrogen Alliance. But again, Joyce has talked about it. Just to mention that in collaboration with H2 and AGA, Africa Green Hydrogen Alliance, we hosted the first Africa Green Hydrogen Alliance Summit in 2022. Next slide. Thank you. Yeah, maybe to spend a little bit more time on the challenges and the risks associated to hydrogen value chain in terms of production, transformation, transportation, and up to the end use. I have provided here different description on every value chain level, but I would really like to focus more on the risks and the challenges. On development phase risks, you have high-level capital costs for development. You have coordination of investment commitment, as highlighted by Joyce, regulatory issues on clarity, on standard and barriers, but also definition on standards. So here, really, I would encourage our regulators at country level, regional level, to start working with key partners on adapting maybe the existing international standard to produce African standard. We have also a risk and challenge on manufacturing of large-scale equipment production. At operational risk level, we have input costs, e.g., for instance, the cost competitiveness of green hydrogen versus alternative technologies. We have also the demand risk, which is very difficult to control, but also the network cost of infrastructure, such as the storage challenges and high transportation cost. Next slide, please. Still at risks and challenges level, structuring of green hydrogen projects involves different sub-projects but present complex financing arrangement. I have just provided here an example of such an arrangement where you need at least 3 companies, renewable energy companies, but will manage the power plant of renewable energy, but also connect to the grid. You will need a hydrogen company that will manage the hydrogen facilities, but also storage and transformation. And then you will need the transport company, but will do all the necessary arrangement for shipping or trucks or managing of pipelines and the transportation to the off-taker. Most importantly are the risks associated to this value chain or to this complexity. As highlighted by Joyce, you have policy and regulatory risks pertaining to the standards, to the authorization, incentives, etc. You have long-term security risk of the offtake in terms of volume, price, duration, but you can also add here when it comes to African countries, the currency risk. Operational risk, I mentioned some of them, the EPC costs, the reliability of the operations, load factor, steady supply of water, but also the risk related to the storage and transport. Next, please. Thank you. So now, for the African Development Bank, what we do in terms of assisting regional member countries, we have a holistic support, including different instruments. For instance, the lending instruments from sovereign to non-sovereign window to provide long-term debt to public and private clients in the African countries, including blended finance solution. The bank provides also guarantees, but helps to mitigate the risk of investment. The bank also can participate in equity to bring additional capital and mitigate the risk of capital. The bank hosts also a number of funds and facilities. Just to mention a few of them, key ones, the Sustainable Energy Fund for Africa, which is a special fund that finances energy projects, but also technical assistance to enhance enabling environment, focusing on green-based road solution to increase the penetration of renewable energy in the power systems. The fund provides also concessional debt and grants across the full range of the project cycle, from feasibility to financing. And it provides also revolving funds for the project preparation. We have the African Legal Support Facility, hosted by the African Development Bank, also provides transaction advisory services, but also capacity building services to African government, utilities, for the negotiation of large-scale and small-scale projects, allowing sovereign debt, infrastructure project on power, but also extractive industry, mining, oil and gas, etc. And also credit litigation support. We have the initiative of Africa 50, which has been established by the African Development Bank to help bridging Africa's infrastructure gap by facilitating project development, mobilizing public and private sector financing, and investing in infrastructure projects, including on energy. The Africa 50 provides also early stage funding for project development and equity for project finance. Next, please. Yeah, the African Development Bank recognized, and acknowledged all these potential that African countries have, and is playing a catalytic role by assisting the African countries with the energy transition targets, leveraging also hydrogen to accelerate the just energy transition, while targeting to create zero emission jobs in the domestic energy supplies, but also to increase export revenues. Some of the examples, for instance, the African Development Bank participates in the Africa Green Hydrogen DFI Working Group. As I said earlier, we hosted the first Africa Green Hydrogen Summit in collaboration with AGA. We are working now on processing support to Mauritania and Cabo Verde in terms of providing technical assistance in the program areas of capacity building, regional harmonization of frameworks, and project preparation activities. But on Mauritania and Cabo Verde is more on having, enhancing the capacity, but also preparing the required documentation or around the green hydrogen development. We are also engaging different project developers, providing project development support and finance for some pipeline of green hydrogen project. I think this was my last slide. Next. Yes, thank you very much for your attention. And I commend really ERCE for organizing this webinar. It's extremely important for the African, particularly African regulator. Thank you very much, Dr. Mabea. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Kalis. And I think your presentation has brought about, new development and has shown us actually what is happening in the continent. And I'm glad to note that over 30 countries have already lined up or signed up various projects on green hydrogen. And I've also realized that 60% decrease in the cost of production, which I think it's a good news to developers and private investors who are interested in developing green hydrogen. I've also realized that the bank is ready to, partner with other investors, and you can provide guarantees, equity, project finance, credit, risk mitigation, as well as risk mitigation facilities, which is also good news. Another thing that I've also realized from your presentation is the need to be able to have robust regulatory frameworks, which will then be able to enable stakeholders or maybe provide an attractive environment for private investors to join in and participate in these projects. So thank you so much. Probably we'll be able to have our last presentation, and then from there we will embark on the questions if there are any questions. So at this point, I'd like to welcome Dr. Mohamedin to present on COMESA's perspective and what is going on in the COMESA region. Thank you, Dr. Mohamedin. Welcome.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Jeffrey, for inviting me also to share the COMESA's experience on this green hydrogen issue. And also let me thank you very much for organizing this very important webinar. And I think things always start like that. People start to have conversation, and then the things will develop, and then you can have a mature industry. So without further ado, let me share my presentation. Can you be able to see it? Can you confirm?
Yes, we can see.
Okay, thank you very much, Chief Executive Officer, for confirming that you can be able to see my presentation. So just the focus of the presentation will be on some introductory remarks, just to introduce the COMESA and also to talk a bit on a green hydrogen snapshot. I think those have been covered by the presentation from Joyce and also by the presentation from Alex, but just to remind people. And then also I will talk about the roadmap towards COMESA green hydrogen energy market, and then what have we done in terms of policy and regulatory harmonization. And then I will conclude. So this one is just to give you, to introduce COMISA. You know, COMISA is a regional grouping of so just I was reminded just to put it in the presentation mode. Now it's the presentation. So COMISA is a regional grouping of 21 African countries which have agreed to promote regional integrations to trade and investment. And here you can see the members of COMISA, the 21 countries, and the total population of COMISA is about 583 million, and a gross domestic product of about 805 billion. You see that the population means that it's a very big market. Here also I would like to introduce Larissa, where I'm working. It is a regional association of energy regulators for Eastern and Southern Africa. It is a specialized agency of COMISA, and it is a regulatory arm. And the objectives include capacity building and facilitation of energy supply industry, as well as regional energy regulatory cooperation, and also inter-regional cooperation. And it has about 14 countries. So here I would like to put things on perspective in terms of energy. All of us will agree that energy is a game changer. Also, energy is an enabler for economic transformation. If you want to make any transformation, you should not avoid energy. Energy is at the heart of that transformation. Also, energy is a key driver for inclusive growth. And in short, energy is an essential service, and also you can go to the extent that you can say and claim, or not claim, to say that energy is a human right issue. Here, if you come to COMISA, you can see here, this is the energy mix. We have about 76% from thermal, 18% from hydros, small and the large hydros, and 60% only from electricity. So meaning that we need to increase the share of renewable energy and energy mix, and I think we are doing that one, and we are gradually going there. And this will be eating from this 76%. But luckily, also this 76%, most of the thermal is coming from gas, and which is also a traditional fuel. So for us, we are very clean. We can say that COMISA is very clean in energy. So just to remind you that green hydrogen, it has been established that green hydrogen is a versatile energy vector. It's relatively easy to store and also to transport, and also could be produced with low or zero green gases. And also green hydrogen could serve as a missing link. That's very important in the energy transition journey from end-use application in otherwise hard to decarbonize sectors such as industry, building, and transport. And this has been, I think, demonstrated clearly in the presentation done by Joyce and by Calixta. So also green hydrogen integrates large amount of variable renewable energy to offer system flexibility. And also the role of green hydrogen could be instrumental to realize climate change targets. And that is very clear and has been already demonstrated. Also, just to share with you some benefits, and you know that better than me, but those benefits have been also demonstrated by Joyce. These are economic and social benefits as well as environmental benefits. So no need for me to go and read them because they have already been presented by Joyce. On roadmap towards COMISA green hydrogen energy market, COMISA renewable energy potential and opportunities for green hydrogen. Here I wish to indicate that COMISA countries have abundant renewable energy sources that are yet to be harnessed. And also renewable energy has the potential to facilitate the improvement of the quality of the people of COMISA, and also through providing access to reliable, affordable, and modern energy service opportunities. Also, the COMISA region with fast untapped renewable energy potential has a golden opportunity to leapfrog into the front ranks of the race into the green economy era and transition towards a low carbon development with affordable and sustainable energy for all to underpin the economic growth. Also, I can say that renewable energy can be used to produce emission-free hydrogen fuels, which becomes a way of storing renewable energy for use when it is needed. Also, COMISA region has the potential to increase substantially the share of renewable energy in the energy mix, including hydrogen produced using renewable energy. But the most important factor here is that this cannot be achieved without reducing the barriers for renewable energy development in the Commission region by improving the enabling environment and also making the environment more conducive for private sector and for investments. And also to work on harmonization in order to make to reduce the differences in the policy and regulatory frameworks and policies. Commission also, the roadmap towards Commission green hydrogen market, we need to remove multiple constraints in order for us to be able to have that roadmap and to enhance the green hydrogen market. So those multiple constraints must be removed to improve market access and also to enhance productive capacity of Commission's energy sector, including renewable energy and green hydrogen, and also market, which include those challenges include capital market challenges such as inadequate physical energy infrastructure due to insufficient investment in the energy sector, unreliability of existing energy infrastructure services, and also the inefficient use of existing energy services. Also, there are some other constraints which are relating to market design, which continues to hamper the development and efficient running of the energy sector. And some of the issues surrounding market design include non-cost reflective tariffs, issues of enhancing regulatory frameworks in order to respond to current issues, and issues of opening up the market to private sector participation in the power and specifically to renewable energy. On Commission policy and regulatory guidelines to support renewable energy deployment, here we have two sets of policies. We have first generation policies and second generation reform policies. So on the second generation reform policies, the most important document that we have is a Commission Model Energy Policy Framework. And this Commission Model Energy Policy Framework, I think, was developed and adopted by the Commission governance structure in 2007, and it was reviewed in 2022, and it introduces reforms to the energy sector, and also it provides guidelines to the member states so that member states can then use those guidelines in order to develop their national policy guidelines. So one of the advantages of the Commission Model Energy Policy Framework edition number 2 is the introduction of hydrogen. And that document introduces hydrogen produced as a result of extraction from fossil fuel. Hydrogen is seen as an alternative source of generating electric power. And also that document also indicated that in the Commission region, Egypt and Kenya have seen some development in hydrogen production, and I think that has been also demonstrated by the speakers, the presenters who presented before me, Mr. Kalexta and also Madam Joyce. So the energy policy for us is very important, and it is that documents where member states or countries they pronounce themselves on the reforms. And now Commission has moved from edition number 1 to the edition number 2, Commission Model Policy Framework, and now it has already been approved by the Commission Council in December 2023, and now member states they are going to use it in order to domesticate their national policies. And as I speak here, about 14 countries, their national energy policy is compliant with the Commission Energy Policy Framework. Also on Commission policy and regulatory guidelines to support renewable energy, the second generation, I can say that we have also developed what is so-called renewable energy and energy efficiency strategy and action plan. So this one was developed and adopted in 2020 as a regional strategy to enhance the deployment of renewable energy and also energy efficiency technologies and services in Southern Africa and Eastern Africa and Indian Ocean region. And also the intention of this renewable energy and energy efficiency strategy and action plan is to enhance renewable energy and energy efficiency strategy policies, regulatory guidelines, and actions to promote energy efficiency and facilitate investments, as well as building capacity for renewable energy in the region. Also, it presents the main findings in terms of barriers, gaps, opportunities in developing a renewable energy and energy efficiency market in Eastern Africa, Southern Africa, and Indian Ocean region. And also it presents key strategies and roadmaps to be implemented by regional institutions and member states. Also, it proposes a set of actions as a roadmap for Eastern Africa, Southern Africa, and Indian Ocean member states to fill gaps and to fulfill their national targets. So the Renewable Energy Strategy and Action Plan also will assist member states develop and align national strategies and action plans to set the course for accelerated sustainable energy transition and also the development of common market. Also, among those policy and regulatory guidelines to support renewable energy development and which in turn support the development of green hydrogen is the Commission Renewable Energy Guidelines. We developed a number of them, one of which is regional guidelines for renewable energy integration in the Eastern Africa, Southern Africa, and Indian Ocean region. And there is another one on credit facility guideline to support renewable energy projects, as well as renewable energy procurement guidelines for the Eastern Africa, Southern Africa, and Indian Ocean. And also for us to include that gender dimension, also we came up with a gender mainstreaming strategy and action plan in renewable energy and energy efficiency in the Eastern Africa, Southern Africa, and Indian Ocean. And then also there is a monitoring and evaluation framework for renewable energy and energy efficiency strategy and action plan, and also an online monitoring tool for monitoring the implementation of renewable energy and energy efficiency strategy and action plan. And also among those guidelines is the model regional solar standards, as well as model common customs tariff framework for solar products. And these have been developed recently, and also we are going to share it with the member states so that they can use them when they are developing their national laws. So those guidelines, we call them second generation guidelines, because as we move, the first generation guidelines, they focus on reforms in the energy sector, unbundling, and so on. But the second generation of guidelines now they are focusing on the energy transition. And now we are already there, and we have developed those guidelines, which I have just shared with you. And then I move to the Commission policy and regulatory guidelines to support renewable energy deployment. And these are the first generation guidelines. And those include guidelines for feed-in tariff, guidelines for negotiating power purchase agreement, PPA, and also it includes guidelines for attracting public-private partnership, PPP, and also guidelines for multiple countries to develop projects jointly, as well as guidelines for developing the necessary regulatory frameworks on off-grid electrification. And also the last one is the best regulatory practices for renewable energy. So those are the first generation guidelines, and they were developed, I think, 2013, 2014. And the first generation guidelines, they were developed in, and adopted by, starting from 2020 up to 2022. So on the first and the second generation guidelines, I would to share that they were adopted for domestication at national level, and they aimed at streamlining policy and physical incentives for investment in renewable energy projects to ensure a just transition. And also they are meant to increase investment in decentralized renewable energy and to spare their costs, and also to promote clean energy initiatives, efforts to encourage private sector investment and trade in renewable energy technologies, and also to promote the use of renewable energy technologies to mitigate global climate change. The intention of the second generation of the regulatory policy guideline is to enhance sustainable regional energy market in Eastern Africa, Southern Africa, and Indian Ocean, as I indicated. As a conclusion, I wish to indicate that it's very important for us to have a capacity building in green hydrogen. That is it's a must, and it's very important because market reforms and the availability of new alternative sources, including PV, solar PV, and wind, green hydrogen, are changing the way energy in the Commission region member states, which include the following subsectors: electric power, which is produced by coal, petroleum, natural gas, and so on, and also biomass and other renewable sources of energy, and also the petroleum and gas subsectors. So the energy sector is responding in terms of generation. Energy sector has to respond in terms of generation, transportation, and also trade. The increase also in cross-border trade and the expanding footprint of regional energy market, and also placing new demand, particularly on the regulators and also on market operators, institutions responsible for policy. So this entails that several skills gaps require support. Those include legal competencies such as contract drafting, technical competencies such as long-term price modeling, and also expansion planning and impact assessment, among others. So we need to build the capacity on those things, plus the technical. And also we have heard from Joyce that when it comes to the technical side of it, the engineers who are doing the petroleum and gas, they will be able to do the hydrogen. But what we need is the gaps in the policy and regulatory, so that they need to be supported in order for us to be able to manage this sector in a very good manner. And also the people that talk about the development of green hydrogen standards. I think this is very important. Also need to work. And as indicated also by collector, she said that there are some international standards on green hydrogen. So what is important for us is to align ourselves to those international standards as a regional economic community. So I think this brings me to the end of my presentation. Once again, thank you very much for your attention, and over to you, Dr. Jeffrey. And also, once again, also thank you very much for bringing us together in order to have this conversation on this green hydrogen issue. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mohamedin, for that very special highlight on what is happening in the Komeso region. And I'm really glad to note that there are a number of social and economic benefits arising from these projects. And also glad to note that the Komeso region has a roadmap on inviting and also encouraging the developments of these kind of resources, which is critical in the energy mix in the African continent. I've noted the two challenges, one of them being the fiscal infrastructure, which actually cuts across all the energy resources. It's very critical that we have various and robust infrastructure so that this energy can be then wheeled from one region to the other. But also the essence of having a good market design is very important. I'm also impressed that we do have frameworks already which can be adopted by various partner states. So thank you so much for your presentation. And now I open it up to the individuals who are listening. If there is any question, I haven't seen any question on the platform yet, but if you have any question, this is the right time to ask. The panelists are here to answer any question or probably any clarification that you may wish to point out or any comment that you may have. The floor is open. Please go ahead if there is any with a question or probably a comment. Okay. I have not seen any. Maybe I wanted just to a little clarification from Joyce. She indicated that there is sort of a decline in the interest in the investment in the current year. What do you think will be the reason for that kind of a decline? And what can be done then to be able to, change that trend?
So what we're seeing here in terms of delays in reaching FID for the large-scale projects, there has been the issue around then the policy and regulation. So countries coming in and saying, we're now in the process of developing the Green Hydrogen Code. So the negotiations have also stalled or been put on hold as then governments are working on these regulations. So that has contributed to part of the delay. And the other has been offtake. So securing, like I had mentioned from the Bloomberg analysis, out of the 149 offtake contracts that they're monitoring, only 13% are binding and 80% are still at memorandum of understanding, or they're still being negotiated and people understanding what this looks like. So the offtake side is not getting incentives like the supply side. And the supply side is because the renewable energy sector is already mature in quite a number of countries. And so there are already incentives around renewable solar. So whether it's the VAT, zero rating. So their benefit from the supply side on producing the renewables and the electrolyzers, that's happening. But now on the offtake side, they're still not realizing similar benefits. So that also the negotiation process has started taking quite a bit of time and delaying funding, because most of the funders are currently asking, by the time you're coming here for funding, at least we want to see you have a binding long-term offtake agreement. So that's biggest challenge, and also then the delay that's coming in government saying, let's define what this framework looks like. Give us time. And so private sector is saying, okay, we will wait, which is the same as we can see with carbon markets, because we're looking at green hydrogen and renewable energy. African governments will not be able to offer subsidies. And most of this, the renewable energy sector, or at least developed countries, have done so using subsidies. But Africa, we are not in a position to really, we don't have these balance sheets where most of the countries are debt stressed already. So where we're going to get such a similar mechanism. And countries like Kenya have started exploring the option of carbon markets for green industrialization. So the carbon financing, that compensation that will come from our not emitting greenhouse gas emissions, can we use then that resource to be able to finance the green industrialization aspect? So I'll say offtake, then there is the funding and regulations have caused the delay.
Thank you so much, Joyce. I think that one is clear. Can I have, I can see Mahmoud, please go ahead. You can introduce yourself, please.
Yes, I'm Maged Mahmoud. I'm the Technical Director of the Regional Center for Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency, RCRE, based in Egypt and serving North Africa, some Eastern African countries, and also Mauritania from the West and Morocco, and of course, Middle East countries. So our constituency is the Arab region, in fact. So it's a pleasure, in fact, to be with you. In fact, the presentations were excellent. All the speakers provided excellent information, and in fact, thoughts that being an expert in the domain, I really appreciate, and I thank them all, and thank you for the organization. My only intervention here that for us as RCRE, we have already started working also on several activities in regarding green hydrogen. And in fact, part of this is also similar to what you are doing. And it will be our pleasure to exchange knowledge, ideas, also to collaborate in building the Pan-African collaboration in this regard. So we have done, I think, the first TOT ever in Africa. This was last year, Train of Trainers, but not only for Africa, but for Africa and Middle East. And this was in collaboration with B2X Hub in Germany. And now we have a pool of experts specialized in giving knowledge on green hydrogen and the derivatives applications, etc. Also, we are working with the League of Arab States on producing some guidelines for setting action plans for green hydrogen. So we are going a step beyond the typical strategies, announcement, etc. I like very much Dr. Joyce's intervention here, that we need to see what will be realized among all these MOUs that we are witnessing in the region, and how much is secured from the funding. So thank you very much. This is what I wanted to say, and we as RCRE are willing to collaborate with each and everyone. And please, one additional thing. I'm part of a committee on the AFSEC, the African Standardization Committee, and we are working now on shaping a task force, TOR, for the task force on green hydrogen, and this is led by AFSEC. So I trust that you will approach all the stakeholders. We are setting now the TORs, who would be the members, etc. So what you were asking for, that to have an African standards for green hydrogen, this is, I think, a dream that will come true soon, inshallah. We are working on that together with the AFSEC, African Standardization Commission. So this is my intervention. Thanks again for each and every speaker and for the excellent moderation, of course. Thank you very much.
I really appreciate Mahmoud, and thank you for letting us know on the development of our ERCE, really what is happening. And I think we'll be looking forward to collaborating with you. There is also another question on the platform. I think we have 2 or 3. And one, I think, is presented to, I think, Joyce. why offtake becomes a challenge. Is it because of the costs or sustainability issue? Maybe Joyce, you can look into that. But before you answer, I'll be welcoming Engineer Abel shortly. And then also there's another one again presented here on the platform, and I think it is directed to Joyce. Maybe you can look at the question as well. And the other one will be presented here, I think, is will be handled by Kalis. So I think we can be able to look at that. But before we look at the questions on the platform, I would like to welcome Engineer Abel. Thank you for joining. Please introduce yourself and please go ahead. You are on mute. You are on mute, sir. Yes.
Good afternoon. I'm Abel Teller, Director General of the Association of Power Utility of Africa, based in Abidjan, Cote d'Ivoire. It's a pleasure to participate to this webinar. I recognize faces and then people that I used to interacting with. And my own is in terms of renewable energy promotion on the continent. There one initiative led in COP28, which is the with IRENA accelerating partnership renewable energy in Africa APRA initiative with substantial fund to sustain the promotion of renewable. I would like to know, because I have one meeting this morning with IRENA on that subject, and what can we have from that initiative to support hydrogen and green hydrogen promotion on the continent.
Thank you so much. Maybe we can have Kalis respond to that, and then maybe Joyce or anyone can respond to that. What we can be able to do to accelerate the uptake of these innovative technology.
Maybe I can start, and then other presenters can also complement. Yeah, I am very happy to see Engineer Abel Teller, and thank you very much for your intervention. Yeah, no, I think one of the things the African Development Bank is doing to provide to support African countries in enhancing or scaling up uptake of renewable energy is to see how far can we provide particularly infrastructure, but can help integration of renewable energy resources. But also, most importantly, as we know, the grid has a limitation on how much renewable energy it can accommodate. Without battery storage, without storage capacity, it would be very difficult to have a significant integration of renewable energy resources. So hence, we are looking at assisting the countries in enhancing the storage capacity so that more renewable energy can be connected to the grid. But also we are providing solution off-grid solutions to allow integration of absorption upscale of renewable energy without necessarily being connected to the grid, but also standalone solution. Yeah, this is maybe what I can say on this question. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Joyce, do you have something to add, or you want to probably look at the question that you have on the platform?
Yes, happy to comment on the issue on what needs to be done to make it move faster. And markets is something that we need to work together to identify these markets. And it's something that even came up from the conversation we started at the Africa Climate Summit on how do we work together as Africa in terms of these are our natural resources, and this is how much we are asking for them. So building our trading capacity at a regional level. And this is really looking at, then we're not exporting raw materials, when you're looking at even the critical minerals that will enable the transition to happen. So jointly working together, and I believe here we can collaborate with the Continental Trade Area team to make this possible. And the issue of renewable energy, shouldn't it be used to power households instead of producing green hydrogen? And this is why the conversation on additionality comes in. And this is the fact that the green hydrogen, the renewable energy that will be used to produce green hydrogen is a new project. So it's not the current resource that you're using. So that's what the additionality argument is putting across, because then we're saying if actually it has been a challenge in the uptake of green hydrogen, because if you're going to divert the current renewable energy resource, which could then be used maybe for e-mobility or clean cooking or even powering households, fridges, television, and the industries that are electrifying, then that definitely is becoming an issue in most jurisdictions. So additionality fixes that. So we're building new power plants. And what we're looking at, even what project developers are doing, is they're saying, I am going to produce about 1 gigawatt of renewable. My green hydrogen is going to use 1 gigawatt of renewable. Out of this, the national utility can access 500 megawatts whenever and they need it. We'll plan this plant in such a way that this power, using the case of Kenya, if I'm producing my renewable wind project in Lake Turkana, I'm saying that half of whatever I produce, Kenya Power can access it whenever they need it. But then when they don't need it, I'll be using it to produce green hydrogen, which then links to the, and this is also appreciating that we still have a lot of work to do in our transmission. The current grid infrastructure in quite a number of our countries cannot absorb any more capacity as they are, but we shouldn't wait to upgrade our transmission networks to start producing green hydrogen. So how are we ensuring that these are moving together? What kind of rethinking? Because we are saying green hydrogen is really, and green industrialization is about challenging the status quo. It's about doing things differently and thinking differently. So what are these new mechanisms that we can work? And we can't say that the solutions have been found, but a few examples have been identified here and there, which is one of those that battery storage, like mentioned, can then ensure that this renewable energy resource is available, which then links to the next question on electrolyte and manufacturing. And we have China, which the alkaline, I think it's called the alkaline electrolyzer has been in use for years and years. And I think South Africa has also produced their own electrolyzer. So yes, these are already at commercial operations. So the PEM, which I forget what PEM stands for right now, it gives you, so there's the electrolyzer that has to run 24/7 to ensure then cost effectiveness, that you're producing to your maximum capacity possible. But this other electrolyzer, which is slightly more expensive, and still other Siemens, I think they just launched their 1 gigawatt factory in Berlin, I think during the Berlin Energy Transition Dialogue. At least there's that manufacturing plant. It then allows you to also work with renewables because of the intermittency of renewables. So you can switch it off and on. And that's the one that's still being developed. But certainly agreeing that the electrolyzer, already the announced capacity, the factories that are saying this is what we have the capacity to produce, when you compare that with the projects that have been announced, then there's a gap. So we still need more electrolyzer manufacturers to come on board. And this also then presents opportunities for African countries that have manufacturing capacity. I know Morocco did announce an electrolyzer manufacturing plant with a German company. So some of these opportunities, and then is this electrolyzer built for African context that we can get the Morocco electrolyzer instead of then going to China, which is also an important conversation when it comes to the transition about diversifying our supply chains to other countries, which then creates more opportunities for other African countries.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And also I would like to thank Mohamud for giving us the definition. You can see it on the platform. Thank you, Bernard Mode, also for initiating that collaboration. And I would like to thank you all for coming in. I think we've gone past the time that I had indicated we should go. So at this point, I would like to then invite Dr. Okech the Director of Electricity at EPRA in Kenya, to give his closing remarks. Welcome, Dr. Okech.
Thank you so much, our moderator, Dr. Mabea. And thank you all to the participants of this very important summit organized by the Eastern African Regional Energy Regulators. I think the summit's topic and the discussions have been very important and educative to all of us. Accelerating access to energy using green hydrogen is something which is here with us. And the only way we can harness it effectively as to benefit our people in Africa, and more so in this our region, is to share our experiences and also to benchmark with each other what has been done in the various countries and also elsewhere, because knowledge is so dynamic and sharing it is very important. To this effect, I feel that today I've really enjoyed myself as I've been listening to the various excellent speakers and also to the insight we have gotten. So mine today is just to thank all of you. First, I want to thank the organizers of this very important summit, the Energy Regulators Center of Excellence, the Independent Regulatory Board of EAPP, the African Green Hydrogen Alliance, and then may I take this opportunity also to thank our guest of honor, Honorable Andrea, our keynote speaker, Engineer Syria, and then our excellent speakers, Mr. Kambanda, Madam Joyce Kabui, and then Mr. Mwadin. And also not to forget our moderator, who has been very much instrumental in making this occasion a success. Also, I would like to thank all the participants who have been with us. Let us be agents of this change, more so the adoption of renewable energy. We know the climate problems which we are facing, like hydrology in Africa. More so in this part of Africa, I think the hydrology has been affected a lot of our power generation, and adaptation of the green technologies is the way to go. And also, now that green hydrogen is here with us, I think we need to harness it for the benefit of our people and also for the benefit of the world, the earth where we live, so that we mitigate the negative effects of power generation through fossil fuel-based technologies. Otherwise, from the capital city, Nairobi, I want to thank you all and wish you a blessed evening. Let us be change agents in our various countries in whatever little way we can do. Thank you and God bless all.
Thank you so much. Thank you, members. Thank you, panelists. And thank you, Dr. Okech, for that closing remarks. With that, then we have come to the end of this summit. We will be inviting you with other series as the days go by. Thank you so much and enjoy your week.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.